Of course, those stories that we've done, of course, also lays the ground for discussion this morning and a raft of other issues that we'll be discussing much later in the course of our program. But I want to introduce to you this morning the Governor of Kisumu, Anyang Nyong'o. And also we do have with us Dr. Shem Ochuodho, who is the Global Leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Also we do have with us Jeremiah Kioni, who's a Member of Parliament from Ndaragwa, eagerly waiting for other two legislators to join us as we continue apace with the conversation here on This Is the Point. You can head over also to our Twitter handle, which is AM Live NTV. Our Twitter handle also on Facebook is not really on our Twitter handle on Facebook, but our Facebook profile name is AM Live NTV. So make sure you give us a thumbs up there. We have a lot to cover, and we want just to begin from what is happening with ODM. Maybe just to pick your brains on what is happening at the course with ODM. There was a meeting that you had there, also the national, I don't know if it was the Executive Council that you had in Mombasa of ODM. You can brief us on that particular development in Mombasa, Professor Anyang Nyong'o.
Well, I'm not a member of the Executive Council anymore, as you know.
Yes, but
and I wasn't in Mombasa either. But I know that the Executive Committee members do meet regularly in parliamentary groups. And I think what happened in Mombasa was a meeting of the ODM parliamentary group at the coast, as well as the meeting of the National Executive Committee. And I have not been fully briefed what happened at the meeting myself, but I can understand the agenda of the meeting.
Yes.
And the regularity with which the National Executive Committee meets. The next meeting will perhaps be held in Kakamega, and the third one in my own county, Kisumu. Because the party leader decided that these Executive Committee meetings should not just be held in Nairobi, but should be held around the country, so that party branches around the country can also interact with the National Executive Committee members. Yep.
So, but you've also been Secretary General of ODM. In terms of disciplinary action and what is happening to Aisha Juma in Mombasa, her declaring, her support for, or rooting her support for Deputy President William Ruto in 2022, what sort of disciplinary action should be taken? Because some of them are saying now, yeah, you should resign.
Well, I think the members, her constituents are right. If you are voted on a party ticket to go to Parliament, you are voted on that party ticket to serve for 5 years. If during that course of service you decide without consultation with your electors to go to another party, of course you expect your electors not to be happy with that decision. So I think the electors are right to say, look, that mandate you gave you was to serve on an ODM seat in the National Assembly for 5 years, and deciding unilaterally to give support to somebody from another party without reference to party members. Definitely you'd expect that the party members would ask you to resign from the party and seek a fresh mandate. In any case, if you read the Constitution gives, for the first time in history, I think our Constitution specifies very clearly in a multi-party democracy that parties are important in both the representative and electoral process.
Yes.
And members of parties are expected to build those parties so that democracy can thrive. But if we have a kind of a loose door which people can enter and leave at any time, we'll never have a stable democracy. Thirdly, of course, individuals are allowed to choose which party to belong to, but there's a process of doing that. I think Raila Amolo Odinga set an example in the 90s when he resigned from Ford Kenya and formed the National Development Party and decided to go and seek a fresh mandate from the people for doing so. I think that was an important example, which I think should form a kind of template of political behavior.
All right. Let's hear from Shem Ochuodho, especially the Kenya Bureau of Standards Managing Director Charles Ongwai and 9 other senior officials who will be charged today on 3 key offenses, among them attempted murder. What is your take, especially on what is happening with the sugar cartels in the country and the contraband, of course, and most of them being laced with copper or lead?
Thanks,
and
Debarl.
mercury, heavy metals.
Allow me also to just comment briefly on the politics, the political dynamics we're seeing around.
Okay.
I must say that I see some very good students of President Moi. They speak with both sides of the mouth. Because listening to Honorable Juma, Juma, she's saying that she hasn't left ODM, that she's just following the footsteps of what the party leader did. I've also seen the deputy president also playing it very cool, that there's no division in Jubilee and so on, when every ordinary Kenyan can see there's an issue, there's a problem. So there must have been very good
But the party leader has
students.
not rooted for any, presidential candidate for 2022.
Well,
So
yeah.
what footstep is she following?
This is why I'm saying that I think they're very good students of Moi, that they speak with both sides of the mouth. You really don't know what they want to mean and whether what they're saying is what they mean. But obviously that's better handled by senior members of the party like Professor Nyong'o. In terms of what's happening in our space in terms of graft, I think it's commendable what the president and parts of the government are doing in clamping down graft. Three major things that keep Kenya down are impunity, graft, and ukabila. So if we can slay those three dragons, there's no reason why Kenya cannot be a great country. In terms of sugar, I was reading an article by Professor Nyong'o in the Star, which
Yes.
I fully associate with. The only thing that I could add is that we seem to have many entry points for contraband sugar. I don't know to what extent we think of the porous borders we have in the north. I am aware of researchers who have spent a bit of time looking at how much sugar is coming from that part of the world. We tend to concentrate on sugar coming through the port of Mombasa. But is this the only entry point for contraband sugar? So I think it's commendable. Much more needs to be done. But my only hope is that there is genuineness. I hope this is not just a PR exercise that's being done.
All right, let's hear from Jeremiah Kioni. Good morning.
Morning, Debarl. I must remind you that I'm also the chair of CIOC. But that notwithstanding, I think one of the things that is going to give us difficulties in this country, talking about the retreat in Mombasa by ODM, is the weak office of the Registrar of Political Parties. For as long as that office does not wake up to its mandate,
Yes.
we will continue seeing members of parliament, politicians dancing around and dancing with it. I attribute all the misbehavior that we see on the political field to the fact that we have a political, the Register of Political Parties or office of the Register of Political Parties that is totally inactive and really available for any election that may be dictated to it any time we have an election coming, as it happened in 2017 and before. That notwithstanding, certainly we as members of parliament must always be clear in our minds that a party can actually punish you if you are not seen to be towing the party line in many ways, including if you are seen to be having loyalty divided or directed towards positions that have not been supported by the party. On the issues of corruption, I want to join my good friend Shem and agree that the steps being taken by the government are, or by the agencies, relevant agencies, needs to be supported. We need to show that there is no tolerance on people who have been engaged in corruption. I know there is still a lot that needs to be proved in court, but optics, perception is also very important. The Kenyans are happy to see the kind of fight that is has been waged on the corruption, cartels, agencies, personalities, and the rest. And the message is clear: you will bear the brunt if you are involved directly or indirectly. And
Yes.
I think that is a message that we need to carry through and through. And perhaps as I was walking up the stairs, I was also thinking of how do we also help the governors? And I know we have our able governor here, Professor Anyang Nyong'o, because they came into office and they have officers who certainly are not going to deliver on what they themselves promised to deliver, but the law seems to be stuck up against them. They cannot deal with those officers. Some of them may be deep high or knee deep in corruption. Others are people who are just hired for purposes of political expediency.
Yes.
And I think it is important that we hear from them and see what aspects of the law needs to be dealt with, so that some more latitude is given to the governors to run their show. Because if you lump him up with officers who were there before, and the office was voted out because it didn't perform, and you give him the same officers to try and run with him for another 5 years, I think we really are making it difficult for the governors. So if there is a loophole, if there is a gap in the law that needs to be amended, I think it will be important to hear from the governors, so that is certainly something that I would want to support in Parliament.
All right, let's hear from Senator Okong'o Omogeni. Good morning.
Morning, Debarl. I think first I should start from the political angle.
Sure.
And I think my take, Debarl, is that after we enacted the new constitution 2010 and introduced chapter 6, which deals with issues of leadership and integrity, and leaders as people who are supposed to set good example, I think it's good that we be men and women of integrity. And nobody forces another to belong to a particular political party. But once you make that conscious choice that you want to be a member of a certain political party, then as a respectable leader, it's only fair and just that you demonstrate full loyalty to that political party. I think it borders on conmanship or conwomanship. If you want to belong to a political party and you don't want to live by the ideals of that political party. And I think if you read Article 75 of the Constitution, the issue of discipline is now anchored in the Constitution. And when we talk of subjecting state officers to disciplinary actions, that may include a party disciplining one of their own. And if you read, the very first constitution that was released to the public for debate by the committee of experts, in fact, there was an article that was very specific, and it was saying that a party, once struck off the role of a political party, can lose his or her parliamentary seat. Though that was subsequently removed after we had the harmonized draft, I think the message that was being sent is that really it's good that you respect and show true allegiance to your party. But I think also we have also weaknesses in our parties because we also are, we kind of at times send mixed signals to our membership. And I think a very good example is, the way some members of parliament, senators and governors reacted to the handshake. I think the weakness I would say there is that perhaps this could have been done in a better way. Though subsequently I think there have been steps, to inform the membership the full implications of the handshake. But I think it left some confusion in the minds of some of the elected leaders. But really the moral point, Debarl, is that we are not sending the right message to our children. When you want to blow hot and cold, if you really belong to Jubilee, show by your actions that you are truly a member of Jubilee. If you belong to ODM, show by your actions that you truly belong to ODM. That is the only way we will build strong political parties that believe in certain ideals. Because there is a reason why you chose to belong to Jubilee, and there is a reason why some of us chose to belong to ODM. So we must show true loyalty to our respective parties. And I'm boiling it down to an issue of our own integrity, our personal integrity. Yes.
The same reason why these individuals are being taken to court. There's no difference between that political dishonesty and this being in an office and not behaving as expected. We may not be able to prove that you breached a specific aspect of the law, but the integrity, that personal integrity, comes to question, and I think that is what Senator is hammering on.
But more than that, Debarl, what Senator Omogeni is saying is very important. I'm always very suspicious of people who behave like a pendulum.
Yes.
You swing that way,
And tomorrow you swing the other way.
Swing that way. I mean, in politics, it's very difficult to deal with such a person because you don't know what their behavior will be the next day. Yeah. So I think
they're likely to treat you the same way they treated
exactly. You know, the swings. I think if Senate Mheshimiwa Aisha Jumwa had gone to an UDM meeting in our own constituency, said, "Look, I have an issue here. Something is bothering my mind. What are we going to do in the elections 2022? Because I feel that we should support, as a party, support somebody else." Then you show some responsibility in that you consult the people you represent, the party who took you to parliament, and you begin with a debate. But to go on this solo game, that thinking that you as one person, not as a member of a party, can swing the directions. I mean, really, it is embarrassing to the voters as well as the party. So I think what Senator Omogeni is saying is important. There's something called discipline in political party, or any organization for that matter, that you enter an organization, or even a club. You know, if you're a member of the Nairobi Club or United Kenya Club or whatever, there are some rules and regulations which determine your membership. But if you go there and violate those rules so suddenly, I mean, it raises some very important issues. But you are right to bring ideas and issues to the party. And then when you disagree, as a matter of principle on those things, then you can say, look, I'm sorry, but I think it is time for me to move to another party. I think that's how we can build institutions.
Mm-hmm. Right. But I want to draw you also, unless you have to say something.
I just wanted to say, I have, of course, not the intention to defend Honorable Aisha. But I think it's also important, Debarl, to take cognizance that even though we have laws that talk about party discipline and all, the Constitution presupposes we have proper parties in the sense that they subscribe to ideologies. I think since we last had the SDP that Professor Nyong'o here and the late Njonjo Apollo had, which had very clear ideology, there's very little of that. But secondly is the aspect of democracy within the parties themselves. I think these are issues that we need to address so that when we talk of political parties and that are contemplated in the Constitution, that there is that truth. But of course, in the circumstances, we don't really know whether Aisha consulted her constituents. We have seen people that are protesting again, but as to whether that's the general feeling, I really don't know. But yes, if we had proper functioning parties that subscribe to ideologies and stick to them, and have true democracy, then I fully support what my colleagues are saying.
All right. Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, maybe I should also draw your attention to what is happening with the war on corruption right now, which is being politicized, and we have also members of the Jubilee side, especially if you look at what we had also over the weekend with the dailies, where there is an ease in Jubilee as graft war splits Uhuru Ruto allies. Some members feel like this is particularly intended to focus on the deputy president. Some MPs claim the war on corruption is targeted or targeting Ruto allies as government officials allied to Jubilee are being given leeway. If you read all that, you think this particular war on corruption is being targeted at the deputy president, as some of the members of Jubilee are alleging to?
I think those alleging so have something to hide. And I think they should be approached quickly by the agencies and investigated on their laurels in the various cadres that we have. Because if we have resolved as a country to fight corruption, then it doesn't matter who it is that is corrupt. We must get to the root of it. And it worries me not if the fight against corruption splits Jubilee. That's good for the nation. If the split is the only casualty is a split in Jubilee because we have fought corruption, I will not be worried a minute. But I want to say that, again, I want to say it that in my mind, those who are raging so are trying to divert us from what we need to do. Just like those who have now come up with ideas to disband EACC, it's really tried to move us from the focus. And as a country, we need to be careful with those diversionary tactics. Jubilee will remain intact. Jubilee was never meant to cover fellows who are stealing from the public. It is meant to deliver on the promises Kenyans were given. And if there are people who are corrupt in it, I would be very happy to see them weeded out. I also don't want to belong to a party that is full of fellas who put the wrong things in commodities that needs to be consumed by people. So I am not worried about any split in Jubilee. And certainly corruption cannot be what will split Jubilee, because we were committed from the beginning. I belong to that side of it that is committed to fight corruption irrespective of the political casualties that may come our way. And certainly, when you're fighting corruption, you will expect people to throw tantrums all over. And they're trying to hang on people, you know, I'm afraid I'm being fought for this reason, and blah, blah, all those kind of things. And the public must not fall play to those kind of statements.
But the president, deputy president also is taking scruples with the media. He thinks also the media is really training their focus on him as far as, you know, even the public auditors. He commented that, is he the only person who is a public officer who's being targeted for lifestyle audits?
I think that will be the position. The media will have to prove that they are doing more than just focusing on Ruto, because without doubt, we want to fight corruption by readers starting, like the president said, and the deputy also said, we are ready for lifestyle audit. So I think it is important for the media also to ensure that all other readers are also avail themselves to this lifestyle audit. We had a session in our committee with the officers of EACC last week, and the question that we posed to them is that are they ready for lifestyle audit? Because at one point they went to court to get it blocked. Yet we are there, the officers. It's the agency that we want to see leading in fighting against corruption. And they said they are more than ready this time round, and we are waiting to see them frontier for that lifestyle audit. So the media, I want to agree that they need to ensure that you let your beam cover more than just one individual.
Right. Okong'o Omogeni?
You know, Debarl, fighting corruption it can be a very lonely exercise.
Yes.
And I think I read, I think on Sunday, that the president himself gave an assurance that he will not mind if in the process of fighting corruption he will lose friends, political allies. So I think he's aware of the consequences of waging a very sustained war against corruption. And I'll give you an example. You know, in Rwanda, there's a time some journalists were interviewing President Kagame. And you know, one journalist posed a question and said, Mr. President, we never see you smile. You know, how come you're always wearing that serious face, you know? And you know, Kagame told them, now, how do you expect me to smile when even the people I picked to work with turned to be thieves? He said 22 of my ministers are in jail. So he said, I picked people to work with me, but they ended up stealing public resources. And he said, I was left a lonely man. So I think the reality of it is that if the president is going to have a sustained campaign, then we must expect some casualties. That one, there is no doubt. And I think when you see people you know, raising eyebrows and saying Jubilee will be divided, it's because corruption will affect people in high places, and of course those probably would be friends of the president, they may be his allies, and I think we're in for very interesting times as this war picks momentum. You know, in Hong Kong, the army major was forced to flee to London because he could not sustain the heat. So if this war gets sustained, then you expect people who are very influential, people holding very key positions in this country, feeling the heat and maybe taking off. So the lucky thing about you know, the president is that he's doing his final term, and he really doesn't need to look at his allies. I think political analysts are saying he's well cushioned by the handshake, because Honorable Raila Odinga is his partner in fighting corruption. So even if there will be a few casualties here and there, he's well cushioned. But I think we need to really give full support to the president on this and have a very bipartisan approach, so that we change our culture, we change the way we do things, and we pump more resources in developing our nation, that enriching people's pockets.
That's
More
right.
than that, Debarl, you know, we usually talk of state capture.
Yes.
In Kenya, there's very, maybe other developing countries too, there's a very interesting aspect of state capture, where a family may capture one parastatal, or a section of a political party may capture one parastatal, or certain higher echelons of authority and governance, and they feel that is their garden, and nobody else should dig there. So if then the president's initiative on corruption finds that, yes, there's a kingpin of corruption there, of course everybody who was harvesting that garden will say, we are being targeted, you see. So we really need to analyze and understand the character of state capture in Kenya, and how also behind that state capture there's something called the deep state, which supports the state capture. The deep state is the intelligence, you know, the people who are shadowy behind the scenes, collecting information and alerting you before you are caught. You see, the president is actually, or the handshake team, is actually up against two things. One, the state capturers, and secondly, the deep state which supports or cushions or warns you know, that well, investigation is coming.
Yes.
I give you this information. Run, like the major from Hong Kong. So he runs in time. In this case, if you are given the information, you begin confusing data and information, so that it becomes very, very difficult for the judicial system, investigative system, finally to take you to court and convict you. That's why sometimes you find people are taken to court. From the public's point of view, it's obviously there, this fellow did it. But the one time they go to court and evidence is brought, whatnot, the deep state and the state capturers have confused the thing so badly that you find the fellow is found innocent. So this is something that I think maybe investigators, scholars should do. And this is why I like this new guy at the DPP, Haji. Yes, Haji seems to have understood this system and seems to know how to slice through it and get to the fellows and deal with them as fast as possible. If we could have one or two more Hajis, I think we could go pretty far.
Right. Maybe we should comment also on what is on the front page of the Star this morning, and also the People Daily. Now, Ruto's running mate headache for 2022. We have them all lined up there. We have also succession. There we have Kenneth Lusaka, Kindiki, Kiunjuri, and Waigoro seen as potential candidates. You know, when there are heavy clouds, then the rain is about to fall, say the former Gatanga. That is what we do have there. So maybe the question that we should ask this morning, especially when the debate is on the 2022, people are saying we should not really talk about 2022. We've had the president also being very deputy president being very categorical with that as well. But still, we can see also from the pages what is being lined up here, just preparing the psyche of the public for 2022. Are we getting out of this mode, and how should we get out of this mode, especially from the Jubilee side? Because I think they are the people who are really pushing this particular agenda of 2022 as it is seen right now. Looking at the optics, maybe we can go on with Jeremiah. I think this is really right up your alley to really tell us more. Yeah.
I was hoping that you not call me first. But let me start by saying that those of us, I included, who are supporting the Deputy President for 2022, must be very careful with the utterances that we allow out of our mouths, and especially on corruption. We must be seen, and I wish I can say that in capital letters, we must be seen to be at the forefront of fighting corruption.
Yes.
Without doubt, I can almost tell you that 2022 is likely to be determined by those who will be perceived to be able to continue with the war on corruption, if this is sustained until 2022. And it is important that we stop issuing statements that seem to be wanting the war to stop. And that's why I think I'm a little bit hard on my colleagues who think that by saying the people are being targeted, they are helping our cause for 2022.
Yes.
We will be making it very easy for others. We have to be seen to fight corruption, and we must frontier ourselves first and foremost. to be cleared of any corruption position, that we must clear ourselves from that. It's not. I'm not in doubt, and that's all of us, including those of us who are governors, those of us who are MPs, who are trying to support, and those who are supporting our deputy president for 2022. Having said that, I think I see these names will continue being thrown around, floated around, and nobody would hate to see his name being put on the cards. Shem was telling me I'm likely to be the most experienced when it comes to that position, because I've been a running mate.
You should be on the flag there.
I remember one day we were in Chicago, and the deputy prime minister then, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, was challenged by Mother Karua, and I remember the word that Uhuru told Mother and said, "Become. 2013 is coming. I have been there before. I have tried to be the president of this republic." That was 2002. You haven't tried.
Yes.
Wait until 2013. Try it. You will know what it takes. I can tell my colleagues that even being a running mate, I was there 2013. It is not. It's not something that is that easy that you just walk there, and it's really you can also get disoriented. But let me say this. As we sit here, and I must apologize for this, I don't know the deputy governor for Professor Anyang Nyong'o. I may have not done enough work. But Anyang Nyong'o is so big that it is very difficult for you to be a governor and be noticed. And two, Anyang Nyong'o has not denied his deputy governor any space. The law allows him to be his deputy, and he must be a very good deputy because he is a deputy, and I'm using professor because he's here. The position of the deputy governor is the same position of a deputy president. You will only be visible if the president allows you to be visible. So even as we clamor for this position for deputy governor, deputy president position, let us all remain clear in our minds that it is a position that you can literally disappear into oblivion if the president himself does not give you any room. It is really, you are given. There is no role that you have, that is provided for, that you play. And I have always asked myself, between the position of the deputy governor and that of leader of government business in parliament, which is a position that influences things to go, if we were just to follow the law and we had parliament functioning as it should.
Thank you.
My take is that the position of the deputy governor and the leader of government business is a really key position. For those who are eyeing DP, they should also be thinking about that position.
All right. Okay, we need to take just a short break from that, and then we see what is happening internationally. When we circle back, of course, we'll continue with that particular discussion with our panelists. Let's see what is happening internationally. Welcome back. You're watching This Is The Point here on AM Live, and I'm holding court this morning with Professor Anyang Nyong'o, who's the governor of Kisumu, Dr. Shem Ochuodho, who's a global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. Also, we do have with us Kioni, who is a member of parliament from Ndaragwa. Also is the chair of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee. And also we do have with us Senator Okong'o Omogeni, who's a senator from Nyamira. We were eagerly waiting for Pogisio to join us, Samuel Pogisio, but he's been held in traffic, so he can't make it this morning. But we continue with the conversation apace. We promise you to know what teams they're supporting when we circle back. Remember also NTV is a home of course, the World Cup for you, where we have been broadcasting, of course, some of its matches that have been ongoing. And we know also Senegal was a big win for Africa yesterday, though they actually drew with Japan. Prof, which team are you supporting this time forth?
In the
World Cup, yes, of course.
Well, in Africa, I'm supporting both Senegal and Nigeria. And in Latin America, I support my usual team, Brazil.
Brazil.
I hope it will do well. But this year, the Latin Americans don't seem to make a very good show. I don't know why. In Europe, I don't have anybody I'm supporting in Europe. Nor do I have anybody in Asia. So I'm only supporting three teams: Nigeria, Senegal, and Brazil.
And Brazil.
Yeah.
All right. Colombia seems also to be doing very well.
But in Mexico too. In Latin America, I think Mexico have two teams. When they play, I support them, and I hope they get up there. Mexico and Brazil. Africa have two. Europe have none. Asia have none.
All right. Shem Ochuodho?
Clearly, people on the table are racist, it looks.
Why do you say so?
I don't think there's any of us who doesn't support Senegal and Nigeria here. But apart from Brazil, I think I also support France because of the many African players there. But I think Belgium, I don't know whether they have already been eliminated, but there were some very good Congolese doing good stuff there. So I wish them well.
The Lukakas. Yeah, let's hear from Jeremiah Kioni.
You're throwing me into the deep.
Oh, you're a tennis fan.
I want to I want to agree with what Professor has said. I will support the African teams. Outside the African teams, of course, Brazil. But as he has said, something seems to have gone. I don't know whether it's the Latin Americans relying on the flair and too much technical approach from Europe, but the interest, it's not so interesting as the previous World Cup. Maybe something to do, I hope it's nothing to do with age, but certainly I can tell you that I am not finding the World Cup as interesting as it has been before.
All right. Why is it not interesting?
I mean, the approach is, you are not allowed to enjoy football for too long. There is a lot of cagginess, you know, you're just stopping others from playing. That's what I see, and what you enjoy is the talent, the natural talent, not just the technical approach to the game. You want to see the flair from individual players. That's more than
Maradona, I think.
All right. Let's hear from Okong'o.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I was left scared by the kind of tactical game I saw from Colombia yesterday, and I am really fearing for my team, which is Senegal. So really, from Africa, I'm really wishing that Senegal could go all the way to the final. I think they look to be also in very tip-top form. Fantastic finish. The strikers are really in top form, and I really hope this time we can see an African team going all the way. But then from Europe, like it or not, hate them or love them, the Portuguese, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't know whether there's any goalkeeper or defender who can stop him. I think it may turn out to be the team to watch. They are really in very good form. But from South America, I'm a very good fan of Nyamira. And I was excited when I saw them scoring at the tail end of the game. So it will be nice to see a final of Brazil versus Senegal at the end of the World Cup. That will be interesting.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I think you've not lost your track of thought. You wanted to share on something on the 2022 politics that is ongoing.
Right.
Yes.
First, on the aspect of stemming graft, I wanted to say I was so humbled when I saw Head of Public Service Joseph Kinyua appear in court to testify, and I said, initially I was wondering, is there seriousness really in stamping this graft? I was very elated to see the humility with which he turned up as a sign that perhaps for once government wants to stem on corruption. But I wanted also to say I belong to a group, the National Mediation Forum, and one of the key things on the 9-point agenda is, of course, stemming graft. I wanted to make a passionate appeal to Kenyans that let's not lose this opportunity to correct the wrongs, including fighting graft. And I must commend the media for what you've done so far, particularly Nation Media Group, in exposing these matters. We have, as Tushauriane, which is part of the Mediation Forum, proposed 10 ways in which to stem graft. Let me just talk of the first one of them. Making sure that extrajudicial killings and so on, that we improve on our security. Why do I say this? Why do we say this? We saw the Minister of Interior himself saying that even if it means me losing my life, I know the barons are dangerous. And then we left wondering if even the Minister for Interior can decry that. The point we're trying to make here is there will be whistleblowers who would be threatened. Can we ensure that even as we go through this bumpy ride to stem graft, that we don't lose unnecessary lives? We could find Mheshimiwa Kioni here talking so eloquently on how to stem graft, and then tomorrow we hear he's been targeted. We don't want that to happen. So I wanted to appeal to the state. As number one, to stem graft, let's make sure that impunity, obeying rule of law, is adhered to. But secondly, let's make sure this cuts across board. There's no selective prosecutions, for example. For example, why do I say this? There are senior members of government who have been fingered. I'd expected them, the 4 CSs who have been fingered, to step aside just to show the seriousness that, yes, we are not smiling and joking about this matter. Those who are cleared, let them come back. But so that's the second point I would want to say. But having said that, coming back to the aspect of 2022, I really also want to think Kenyans shouldn't allow to be diverted. I think for now, for me, this handshake is such, we should treat it like an egg. That's where our focus should be. These are the side shows. I think let's allow time. So for that reason, allow me not to delve into the 22 discussion, because I think it's diversionary. There are more important points on the 9-point agenda of the building bridges handshake that we should be our focus.
All right.
Yes. I've always been opposed to a presidential system of government in societies like ours, because they are a hindrance to development. Look, we just had an election the other day.
Right.
Just the other day. A year has not passed.
Sure.
And now we are faced with something like this.
Yeah.
Debating an election which is coming in 4.5 years' time. Now, if we are going to be in politics for all this time, when are we going to be? Let these people think about development. This is the apex of political leadership in this country. Now focused on not just side, but focused on plotting.
Right.
Plotting for the next election. When are they going to begin thinking on how to deal with flooding in Nyanza and the sugar industry and infrastructure and all that? I mean, really, we should think twice. We chose a system which definitely is not good for us as a country. First of all, we're a multicultural society, 42 tribes, even more. The moment you begin doing this, you begin this tribal arithmetic. Now, when will you have national cohesion? We are making it very difficult for those who are for national cohesion, so that it becomes a political basis for a national developmental and democratic state. But we never have. We may have a democratic state because people are competing for position, but it will not be national, not will it be developmental. And we must have those 3 together to catch up with the South Koreas and Singapores and so on. Now, if you look at the Daily Nation, this is why I put these 2 things together.
Yes.
I mean, really, on this page 5.
Page 5.
Showing the number of people, companies which were given this sugar import. I will bet you my bottom shilling, Debarl,
yes,
that all these companies you see here, you could squeeze them to about 5 companies or 6. Because you have one company having company-lets until you find somebody who was given 13 kilograms to import. It doesn't make sense.
13 kilograms. Which company is this?
Quick Limited.
Chemopik.
I mean, how does it make sense to import 13 kilograms for all the way from Brazil? I mean, it doesn't make sense. But this is just, I'm telling you, this is just done, Debarl, to camouflage. Yeah, to camouflage the deals that this the deals that this balance. And when I'm telling you, when the Minister for Internal Security was saying that he fears this barons, I think he's telling the truth. By the way, he's telling the truth. This thing, by the way, is not now. We started dealing with this thing in 1994. I was chairman of the Public Investment Committee when we were dealing with this sugar industry thing. And at that point in time, we pointed out to the government, if you want our country to prepare to deal fairly in COMESA, stop imports. Let us develop internal capacity to produce sugar at competitive levels. And we can, because we have the right weather, we have hardworking farmers, okay? And we also have extension service, which is very well. Let me tell you something. Why did the tea industry succeed? Through KTDA, a state-run enterprise. KTDA got the right equation to organize small-scale farmers as well as large-scale farmers to produce tea, by the way, at competitive prices. Because we are running against countries like Ceylon, now called Sri Lanka. We are not the only producers of tea.
Yes.
But we have never used that KTDA example to organize the sugar industry. We had a very well-organized coffee industry, also in which the state played a big role. Then the cartels came in playing with the coffee market. It also collapsed. Now, these barons and these cartels, they have a very destructive self-interest against the Kenyan farmer and the Kenyan worker. And if President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to crack on them, let him protect Matiang'i and the guy, the DPP, that fellow. So that we deal with this once and for all and realize the person we want to protect is the farmer. Because agriculture is the basis of the growth of our GDP.
Thank you. Let's say from Jeremiah Kioni, I think unless you want to comment something on this particular topic of 2022, I think you exhausted the 2022.
I had exhausted. I just wanted two things. One, if you want me to say something on 2022, I would want to say that the people from Mount Kenya who really want William Ruto to win 2022 would rather drop their claim for deputy president position. I know that is a very difficult statement, but they have to drop it. If they want William to win easily, they must stop demanding it from him. A debate for another day. On the sugar industry, I want to, my colleagues would help us, but some of us have gotten to thinking that perhaps we should just do away with this sugar farming in the country and allow everybody to import sugar. Would we, maybe these cartels may just come to an end, because now we are saying we are growing sugar, then we have a limited way of licensing a few people, and for you to be licensed, you have to belong to the cartels. What would happen if we then say perhaps it's not as productive as we thought, it's not as beneficial as should be to our farmers to continue growing sugar in Western Kenya? Let's allow imports from outside. The cost of sugar may come down, and we may this may be the final blow to these cartels, and we allow the country to move on.
Right, thank you.
Right. I think, Debarl, just a small comment, and this is to our president. You know, I think this notion that you only fire a minister if he's engaged in corruption is not a good thing for this country, because we also need to bring in an issue of competence. And I think the Constitution is very clear that if you are incompetent, you can be removed from office. Now, what we are talking about in the sugar industry are issues of policy. It may not be an issue of corruption, but somebody is getting it wrong in terms of policy. And you cannot import sugar unless the Treasury opens the window and even puts a ceiling or leaves it open. And I think the problem here is that the Treasury left it open and said, import as much sugar as you want. Now, as a president, you really need to, and I think one of his 4 agendas is to support manufacturing. Really, we should see a case where the president can deal with his own ministers who may be seen to be incompetent.
Yes.
I mean, if you are putting in place policies that are not in public interest in terms of supporting our local industries, or policies that are geared towards protecting some cartels, who should take action against that particular minister? I think if the government, if the president needs to send a strong message to his cabinet secretaries, then in some instances heads should roll if really we can make a conclusion that this particular cabinet secretary is incompetent. Because that's the only way you can increase accountability from your cabinet secretary. It should never always be that a cabinet secretary or a principal secretary should lose his seat or rather be fired from office because of corruption. The president should also look and say, is this team helping me towards achieving my agenda for the country? If we can't do that, then people may also start doubting, is the president serious in pushing this agenda? Yeah. So that's my comment on this issue of corruption and the sugar industry.
Thank you. Still on you, because I think we've been talking a good game about the 1 billion shillings that was set aside in the budget for the senators to just aid you maybe on the oversight role that you have within the counties. But it seems also that the MPs, looking at what we had also in the standard, there's a showdown looming as MPs also are dealing a blow to the senators' bid for the 1 billion shillings. And MPs, we're given to understand they have annulled the regulation drawn by the PSC, which sought to establish the kitty for senators. And there are various arguments here, just to read a bit of them. One tucked away there is, I beg your pardon, is from Kipipiri, Member of Parliament, that is Amos Kimunya, saying that the duties listed by the regulations are scheduled to be undertaken by senators who are perfectly under the jurisdiction of MCAs. The senators are idle and need work to do, but we should not misuse public funds by allowing them to do the wrong job. This is what Amos Kimunya is arguing. But also, senators, you're trashing the MP's decision, terming it an action done in absolute bad faith. So you can tell us about this particular development that we do have, especially with this kit, and how is it going to adversely affect you in your operations?
First, I think, yes. First, you know, I don't understand why there should be the perceived bad blood between Senate and National Assembly, because we should all be working in the best interest of this country. But I think I saw the comments by the chair of the delegated committee on legislation, that is Honorable Sholei, and I think she did not make a report to Parliament saying that senators should not have access to the oversight funds. I think the point she was making is that she wants a process that has some element of public participation. Number two, she felt that those regulations should not emanate from the Parliamentary Service Commission, but rather from the Treasury. So in terms of principle, she does not differ with the senators that we should have an oversight fund. I think the comments by this MP for Kipipiri are unfortunate, because you cannot term other elected leaders idle. Really, that's very unfortunate, and I think those are comments that should not come from a leader. If we need to engage, I would rather we engage from a platform of issue-based debate, and I think Sholei put this in a very good perspective. Yes. She said, first, let's have some form of public participation on this. Number two, our views are that this regulation should be done by Treasury. And I'll give you an example. You know, the women reps have a fund, and this fund was developed by the Treasury. You know, and I don't think they were given that fund because they were idle, but because it was trying to align their work to their seat, which is really to support women parliamentarians in counties. Debarl, I will tell you that if really senators need to do an effective oversight in our counties, that fund is more than necessary for senators. And I'm hoping that going forward, we'll have a very useful engagement between our brothers in the National Assembly, the Senate, and the Treasury. Because I think we already have that fund captured in the budget. It's not 1 billion, it's 500 million. And I don't think we should be persuaded by these very unfortunate comments by our brother, the MP for Kipipiri, Honorable Kimunya.
Right. Yeah. Any of you want to comment on that briefly before we head over to other topic? Shem Ochuodho?
With permission, Debarl, in terms of stamping graft at the county level, I think, of course, strengthening oversight is important. One of it is empowering the honorable senators to do their work more effectively. We've proposed to some radical offer that even as we think of having strengthened oversight, official position at the national level, we may also want to think of running the gubernatorial runner-up being an official leader of opposition with a smaller cabinet to checkmate the governor. I know Professor Nyong'o may not require this because he's already doing an excellent job. But for other governors generally, I think this may be one way of ensuring that there's effective cross-checking, because in some county governments you have almost singular party MCAs with the governor, and sometimes very difficult to checkmate. But also something that's emerging that we need to do there is the role of internal auditors. It seems that we're currently relying on the Auditor General, but the Auditor General does almost post-mortem. He comes to check things after they have happened. I think if governors did appreciate and strengthen the role, the function of the internal audit, because when things are being done, it's the internal auditor who is on the site. That could be another way of strengthening oversight at the country.
I just want to comment on what my colleague Nyamira said about we have an option that we can stop growing sugar altogether. We only think of that option when we think of the product of sugar just being white sugar. Whereas if we really wanted to benefit from sugar industry, we should think of sugar industry as having many more byproducts, which are important for our industrialization process. For example, bagasse itself. You can make fertilizer and furniture from bagasse. Okay. There is something called I think they called it the mother earth or something, which is some kind of refuse you get from after you've done molasses. That's a very good fertilizer. Just take it to the fields. Second, molasses, you know, is important for making all kinds of things, including power alcohol. Right. An industry like East African Spectre Limited in Kisumu would not survive without the sugar industry, because that is where it gets the raw material on which it does other things. Then we have the beverage industry. If you go to Cuba, you'll find that sugar also is a source of other beverages. And alcohol, for example, whiskey, whatnot, you get from sugar, sugarcane. So what we must understand is doing away with the growing sugar is doing away with a potential source for industrialization in this country. So we shall be importing sugar from other countries who have already benefited from the byproducts. So I think we should think twice before we do that. And we have been foregoing, I think, too many opportunities for exploiting our comparative advantage in the East African market and in the world market. We've been going for too many opportunities for doing so. We have been thinking of agriculture as only a source of raw material for export or for domestic consumption, not really in the agriculture as also a basis for industrialization. I'll give you another example, the rice production in the Nyando Basin. Now, because of the disorganization, poor policy in rice production in that area, you find that the Ugandans come and pick up rice from our farms, pay the farmers cash, take the Ugandans to Uganda. So we don't get the husks from the rice, which can be used as animal feed and fertilizers. Yet we have there in Kisumu a rice milling plant which was put up by the Lake Basin Development Authority, which is only functioning at 11% capacity utilization. You see, all these things, you can replicate them in all areas of agricultural production, where policy and implementation of good policy for purposes of using agriculture as a basis for industrialization has been missed for decades. Now, this is not the time now to give up. Right. This is the time to say, let us rejuvenate our policy-making machinery. Let us make sure that when we make policy, we apply it, and we have some kind of management skills in our factories and agricultural sector to make us efficient and competitive, both in the East African market and the world market.
All right, thank you. Sugar?
Yeah,
briefly.
Thanks. Now that I wanted also to concur with Prof, that thinking of doing away with sugarcane growing and the industries should be a last resort. As of now, there have been proposals that perhaps, why is it expensive to produce sugar here than it is, say, in Sudan and other places? Some are suggesting let's amalgamate land so that it would be more cost effective. But in some may just say that sugar would be profitable. We need to look at the entire supply chain. Part of it is management, and I'm in this regard very happy that coming from a neighboring Sony, that there is new leadership. I have a lot of confidence on Honorable Likao, and I'm hoping that's going to help turn that industry around. Sony has been one of the few companies, sugar companies, that's doing well. So in a nutshell, we just need to improve on the supply chain. There's no reason why sugar cannot be profitable in this country.
Right, thank you. I want to draw your attention also to the front page of the Daily Nation today, where we have a very interesting splash on the front page of the Daily Nation. I do have my hard copy with me, beg your pardon today. My soft copy is acting up a bit. But it says, plan to pay MPs more. Fresh proposal by House team also seeks to raise monthly allowances of legislators, but the icing on the cake will not be on the floor of the chamber, but in the cafeteria and pub outside, which will be refurbished and equipped with larger teapots and sleek counters manned by 5-star hotel quality chefs. This story also continues on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And And I want us just to comment on this as well. Why are we focusing or training our focus on the teapots and the sleek counters, and why do MPs also need more money? Kioni, you're actually the chair of the CIOC. I know, of course, this is not...
I implement the constitution, not
the constitution.
not the menu.
But you see where it's really this is depressing, especially when we're talking about a bloated wage bill right now, and looking at the back page of a Daily Nation. Actually, we can try and juxtapose this particular headline with what is at the back page of a Daily Nation today. Every Kenyan owes lenders 110,000 shillings. Public debt crosses 5 trillion shillings mark as Jubilee appetite for borrowing intensifies. So this is, on the head of every Kenyan, right? Even the newly born, this is what the amount they should be paying, or they're indebted to pay, as far as, also the public debt is concerned. So we have this at the back page of the Daily Nation, and we have this on the front page of the Daily Nation, plan to pay MPs more, while we still have, us being saddled with all this debt over our heads. Where are we losing it? Are we losing the plot as a country?
No, Debarl, like you have said, I am the chair of CIOC, which is in charge of oversighting the implementation of the Constitution, not oversighting the implementation of a menu in Parliament. And
what's first? Maybe we should start and look at the menu.
Let me just
what is wrong with the menu first of all?
Let me just go on. I know this is a debate that will continue. I am not quite the one to discuss it, but I think one of the things that I can say, given what you have just said, because it's not an issue that I'm familiar with, but one of the things that I can say is that if it's a question of the facilities that you see where the members of parliament, where they sit, without doubt, just like any other public place, any other hotel, there is need that from time to time this is refurbished. Even when you come and visit your colleagues, and you can visit Senator Omogeni, you'll actually agree that something needs to be done. As to how it should be done, I would rather that this is discussed by the PSC and others who are involved in this. But let me say that what I think, now that you've taken us to the back of the page, and I think I saw in Brazil a case where the country...
but before you go at the back page...
I'm just tying it together.
Yeah, I know. But the question... I know you're tying it. But the question is, I still know that the Continental House is under construction yet, isn't it?
One is the new building.
Is a new building, yeah.
The construction...
So in the new building...
Continental is still as it was.
Yeah, and this is a project of members of parliament as well. Well, that you have the facilities, amenities.
Project.
Yeah,
it's a national project.
It's a national project, but yes. For who? For the members of parliament?
For the people's representatives.
Who are the people's representatives? This is just a matter of semantics. This is for the members of parliament. So you want to tell me, even within the Continental House, you'll not have a cafeteria? That will have a duplication. Yes, now you want to refurbish Parliament,
I
the
agree
cafeteria.
With you, yes, I agree with you, Debarl. We are told the house is likely to be finished sometimes next year.
Yes,
and if that top building has all these facilities,
why do we need to refurbish?
Anything else should wait and move into a new facility. I hear you, and I agree with that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not quite familiar with those goings on. There is a whole committee that is charged with that, and perhaps you should engage the chairman. The member of parliament from a constituency in Kisumu is his name has gone, but he is the chair of the committee that is responsible. And then, of course, we have the parliamentary select committee. The parliamentary service commission that you can be able to shed light, and will be better to discuss that issue than myself. I am unable completely because I deliberately keep away from those issues. I engaged with them during 10th Parliament. If you want me to say, I was among the only 3 members of parliament who volunteered to pay taxes that time, and we did a couple of things. I have done my bit. I don't want to get into it anymore.
All right, let's hear from Senator Okong'o on this particular bit.
I think Debarl, I've also just seen this on the newspaper today. So I don't know, I'm not privy whether this is factual, whether it's happened, I don't know. But I can assure you, I've not seen any change to my pay slip. I think what I earned when I joined the Senate.
These are plans. It's not really like
so I think maybe we should bring you to speed. I think we have a body called Parliamentary Service Commission, PSC, and we have commissioners. I think they are the people who deliberate these issues with the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. And so if you really want to get good answers from these plans, because the headline says plan to pay MPs more. So if there are any plans being hatched, then it could be by the Parliamentary Service Commissioners. And I think if you call them to appear here and shed light, maybe they will be able to explain to the country what plans they have and what kind of changes they propose to make. But for now, really, to be very honest with you, I have not seen any form of circular from PSC, and I don't have the details on what they really want to change in terms of remuneration for members of parliament. In terms of the construction, I see it like anybody else, because we don't participate on issues dealing with the constructions going on. Again, it is the Parliamentary Service Commission that gives the contracts, and they are the ones, even for me to get my office, it is the PSC together with the parliamentary staff who make the necessary arrangements. So for sure, I don't know what plans are in place. Perhaps if I could make a suggestion, you could get the Speaker of the National Assembly, who is the chair, and the members. I think the member of Nyamira is referring to His Honorable Ben Momanyi, MB for Barabu, is a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Aisha Juma is a member. We have Senator Aniri. I think if you call them here, they will be able to shed light to what kind of plans they have, what has informed their decision. But me and Honorable Kioni, we don't have the details, and we don't even know what has informed the plans that they have for members of parliament. That's the much I can say on this.
But you can actually weigh in on what we do have at the back page of the Daily Nation, the 110,000 shillings that every Kenyan owes, lenders.
As the senator weighs on that,
yes.
I was going to say that I saw this in, I engaged a delegation from Brazil. And one of the things they do, which I found very interesting, is that they have made it their duty to inform the people of Brazil the level of debt that the country is in and is likely to get in, both internally and externally. So there is no speculation, and the figures are always given. They are freely available. I think it is something that we should do as a country, so that this business of speculating stops, and it also scares us if it is not true. And if it is true, we are also able to engage in it as a people. And I thought that is something that we need to borrow heavily from Brazil. They will tell you how much did we borrow last year, how much have we borrowed this year, how much did we pay. Are we, like, for since 2014 in Brazil, they are actually able to tell the country that they have been making losses because of the drop on the, I think, the cost of oil or something. But they are showing the country that the expenditure is higher than the revenue, and everybody is able to engage on those issues. When they bring in some measures to mitigate, Kenyans or the Brazilians are able to buy into it or oppose them, depending on the reasons given.
Thank you.
But Debarl, I think...
just a moment, let's hear from Prof, then we'll come to you.
I think
yes.
If you look at the level of indebtedness that Kenya was in from about 2003 to 2007, during the NAC government, the reformist government, you'll find that we were not as indebted as we are today. But that's not so important. The second question to ask is, to what extent did the NAC government get into debt to finance productive enterprises that then stimulates economic growth, rapid economic growth, which then is capable of paying back the debt?
Yep.
That's the question. You come now and say, over the last 5 years, what has caused our indebtedness? Yes, it is true that we got into debt to build something like the standard gauge railway, which is very important. But the question is, at what cost did we build the standard gauge railway? And to what extent has it, or is it likely to give us an injection into productivity so that the rate of growth can help us pay back the debt? Now, you've already seen that one of the problems we have with our foreign indebtedness is as we get into debt, we also seem to stimulate corruption, okay, which complicates why we are borrowing and investing. I'll give you a very good example. It was very shocking, the amount of money that we had to pay in order to build the SGR in terms of land compensation. Now, that is part of the cost of building the SGR, which is unfortunate because a good project meant to stimulate growth in this country is then burdened by an extra cost of corruption, which reduces its impact to some extent. Secondly, the president was saying there, and quite rightly so, that he wants the SGR to be finished in time, and he wants the capacity of the SGR, the goods it carried, to have a higher internal rate of return. You see that? Now, if that's again compromised by other things, i.e. we got the wrong coaches, the management's wrong, and so on, then we are able to progress. Okay. So what we need to debate and sort out is not so much to be so much excited of how much Kenyans owe. Obviously, we owe more than we can pay now. But to what end are we using our indebtedness to spark growth and to develop our economy? If there is something wrong there, that is something that should be checked. Just getting more and more into debt without analyzing the impact of that debt, whether it is positive or negative, is not very useful. Yeah.
All right. Debarl, allow me to empathize with my colleagues here. There's nothing as unpopular, talking as a former member of parliament, for an MP to talk about anything that's against the welfare of MPs. So I can understand why...
The fancy footworks, yes.
Yeah.
They'll always be skirting around the issue.
That's right. But having said that,
yes.
And bearing in mind where we're coming from as a country, and assuming that the president and the former prime minister are very serious about turning the table around, turning Kenya around to be a great country, I had expected austerity measures in the national budget to begin with, and also even the legislature itself needed to demonstrate austerity. What you're showing us here is not a sign. It does not inspire confidence that we are tightening belts as Kenyans that want to take off to meet the targets that were set in Vision 2030. Having said that, Debarl, I'm yet to meet a single Kenyan who supports the budget that was recently read. That budget which proposes to tax Kenyans more, to borrow more, when you're already in a ditch, as Professor Nyong'o is saying here. What value did we get from these borrowings that we had? And there are many which are yet to be explained to the satisfaction of most Kenyans. So going to borrow more to pay debts that have not been effectively and efficiently used, I think for me, and you tax Kenyans, particularly the poor ones, you know, the essential goods. I'm hoping that members of parliament are going to reject this budget. But I wanted just to say, I think we have overborrowed. We don't need to borrow more. We need to tighten the belt, and tightening the belt means austerity. This is not the time to add ourselves more. Thank you.
To add ourselves more, of course, when we actually settling all this burden on the common mwananchi to equip, you know, some fancy facilities with larger teapots and refurbished sleek counters as well, manned by five-star hotel quality chefs.
In fact, Debarl, I was expecting to see even greater provision for the big four. You know, I'd expected, you know, although 400 billion shillings was provided, but is that sufficient? You know, I was looking for primary health care. I think about 2 billion shillings, and I'm asking really, is this going to help us achieve the big four? But let's even say that big four at least got 400 billion shillings. As I was going through the budget, I was trying also to see the BBI, the Building Bridges Initiative. Is there a budget that's going to deliver on this? Because this will require a substantial budget. I didn't see, and then I'm left wondering, how serious are we? And I was really, really hoping and praying that the President Kenyatta and the Right Honorable Raila are really serious about giving Kenya a new, fresh. This is the Kenya we want, which has eluded us for over 60 years. I'm really hoping and praying that we deliver, but you can only deliver if there's budget provision to deliver on the BBI.
All right, thank you. Unless you have something to add on that.
I mean, just
briefly.
I think Debarl is good. What's that Daily Nation back page? I think it's not an issue dealing with members of parliament,
Yes.
but it's a whole national issue. And I think if you read the captions there, it says public debt crosses 5 trillion mark as Jubilee appetite for borrowing intensifies. So I think the debate we should have here is really, should we continue borrowing now that we have hit the 110 mark? And then if you read down this, the money we borrow is for infrastructure development, you know, electricity connection, etc. But what is the problem that ails this country? You need to read what's at page 19 of, I think this is the Star. And there is an article there by somebody called Musyoka wa Yendo. I don't know how factual that is, but he's posing a question. He's asking, did Dongo Kundu cost shillings 1 billion per kilometer? So, I mean, Debarl, the question is, are we making good utilization of the money that we are borrowing, or are we borrowing money to waste, then we go back borrowing? I think that's the debate that we should engage in. The so-called austerity measures. You know, there's a time we were told that cabinet secretaries should be using less than 2,000 cc vehicles. Do you ever see it happening? I mean, all CSs, I see them throwing us off the roads with 4x4s and even with chase cars. If you're talking about the ballooning public wage bill, was it necessary to create these positions of cabinet administrative secretaries? Just look at how much that is going to cost the taxpayer. and that should really be giving answers to why we are having a ballooning wage bill. So I think that is what should guide our debate, Debarl. Should we continue borrowing, and do we ever put into good use the money that we borrow? I think my answer is no. If we increase our accountability and make good use of the money that we borrow, we would not need to borrow next year. But if we borrow this year and misuse, then of course again next year you will run back borrowing. So we will keep on increasing the money that we owe as a country, our public debt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, Prof, your 30 seconds remarks, your headline thoughts. As
No, but I think what Senator Omogeni is saying is very important. As I said before, borrowing not bad. The most important question to ask, you are borrowing for what?
Borrowing forward.
And how do you manage the money that is borrowed to the maximum benefit of your economy? We should not borrow because there is a push for borrowing. Treasury seems to have, I seem to think that for the last couple of years, there has been a push for borrowing. People want to lend for projects, looking for mandarins in Treasury to grab the money and look for the projects and implement it. That can lead an economy in tremendous trouble, as we are seeing at the moment. So I think that push factor should be reviewed and kind of stopped.
Thank you. Yeah. Dr. Shem Ochuodho.
Debarl, in terms of austerity, I was privileged to serve the government of Rwanda. At the time that Rwanda implemented austerity measures, my boss minister was in charge of communications, including transport. We traveled to Stockholm. While we are there, he's told, sir, your car has been towed away. Now, that's how systems work. He said, yes, that's fine. We have decided at the cabinet level that these fuel gas laws are going to be taken away and implemented. The point is, if we need austerity, let's ensure they happen. But allow me also to say Saturday is a very sad day in Africa with what happened in Addis and also Bulawayo. That's a wrong way to interfere with government.
Thank you. Let's hear from Nyamira Kioni. Your 30 seconds.
I see there is an article in one of the papers, I can't say the page, where we are being, the article is, disclose your wealth, it's not being taken away from you. And that is being addressed to senior members in the government, and I'm sure members of parliament and the rest. I think it is something that we need to do. and we need to disclose our wealth and disclose it to EACC, not IEBC. But allow me also to say that a full and better disclosure of the amount of money that we have borrowed is will be useful to this country, so that we stop speculating around this issue.
Thank you. Let's hear from Okong'o Omogeni.
Yeah, I think I've seen a caption talking about the caps on interest rates, and I really think I really want to hope that my colleagues in the National Assembly will treat this issue as a public interest matter, so that we don't look at the interest of just commercial banks, but we also look at the interest of the common mwananchi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Anyang Nyong'o, who is the governor of Kisumu, thank you for coming through as well. Dr. Shem Ochuodho, the chairman of Global Kenya Diaspora Alliance, thank you for coming through as well. Kioni, who is a member of parliament from Ndaragwa and also the chair of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee, thank you for coming through. And of course also Okong'o Omogeni, who is actually a senator of Nyamira. Thank you for coming through, and thank you for your valued company. I leave you with this particular editorial cartoon, a bit squeamish, but it's actually a bracing reminder of what is really happening to Kenyans. This I drew it from, of course, the archives, just to remind you, as if milking the cow dry was not enough. This is what legislators, this is what the corrupt leaders are doing to this country. You see, that is a cow, right? And you can see, I don't want to talk about what is, I leave it for you to decipher that, but this is what is happening to Kenyans. This is what is happening to the country, right? We are being raped, and of course, we need now to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. How angry are you, right? Look at that cow. Thank you. Have a lovely day.